Good morning, Title I coordinators. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning. I hope you all are safe and well. I'm Tara Rodriguez, Director of the Division of School and Program Improvement, and we have several KDE folks here today who will be helping to present. So if they could go ahead and you all could go ahead and introduce yourselves.
This is David Malonti. I'm the Assistant Director in the Division of School and Program Improvement.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Considine. I'm the Title I Branch Manager.
So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to present the screen here so you can see our slides that we have for you this morning.
Title I, but I know you're missing the C really bad.
Blended. We're blended. We're hybrid.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Brenda, can you see my slides?
I sure can.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with a few logistics. If everybody on the call can please make sure you're on mute, and we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and mute people as well so we can make sure everybody can hear. So today you notice we have a change. You can still send in a question to me by email at the address shown on the screen if you have a question, and we will go ahead and try to get that question answered during today's call if we can, and if not, we'll follow up with you afterward. The webinar will be recorded and posted on the Title I Documents and Resources webpage. It usually takes a day or two for it to be posted. And as you've noticed, there is an additional way that you can submit a question or a comment. This is our first time to have a live Teams meeting, and so you are welcome to use the chat for any questions you would like to address to us. David will be monitoring the chat and helping with those questions. And then, of course, you can also respond to each other's questions and interact, make it a little more interactive that way as well. So on last month's webinar, let's see, looks like my screen is, there we go. Last month's webinar, we had some updates and reminders to share with you. We also, Brenda talked
No,
some about...
No. I'm trying to get on a webinar and I can see them talking, but I can't hear anything. I can't figure out why not.
So Brenda shared some, sorry, let me go back here. Brenda talked about the requirements of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Act. David shared with you some information about equitable services consultation. And then I also provided an update on our CARES Act and ESSER monitoring. On today's agenda, we will be going over parent and family engagement requirements. We'll share with you some of those common findings in parent and family engagement, and then we have sent a resources sheet with you along with the reminder about today's meeting. So you should have received those resources in the email, but we have some others to share with you during the call as well. So, Brenda, do you want to go ahead and talk about some of the requirements for parent and family engagement?
Sure, Tara. Thanks for inviting me. When it comes to the parent and family engagement policies, districts and schools are required to have those. And so we felt like that this would be a really good time for us to bring this up as we are monitoring and looking for those policies at the district and school level and how they're developed and, if they're reviewed annually. We felt like this was the time to bring it up to districts so that they can begin their pre-planning. Now is the time that you would be reaching out for stakeholder input regarding your policies and your compact at the school level and planning for next year. So we're going to tackle ESSA 1116, parent and family engagement, the policies for the district first. So in order to receive Title I funds, the districts have to conduct an outreach to parents and family members in how they're going to implement Title I programs, activities, and those procedures of how they're going to get parents involved in those activities. These programs and activities should be planned and implemented with meaningful consultation with parents of participating children. Now, what would that outreach look like? We wanted to kind of give you an example because I'm an old district person, and I know sometimes that's difficult at the district level to get outreach and to get input from your stakeholders. So one thing you could look at is some type of newsletter or a form of communication that is going to all the parents that are in a participating Title I school. You can also collaborate with your SBDM councils. I know many of the coordinators will sometimes attend their Title I SBDM council meetings to share those activities and budgets with them. Also, at the district level, you may decide to develop an advisory council that would focus on your Title I program, and that's a good way to get some input. You may invite solicitation feedback through surveys. You might have meetings. You can always put it in the newspaper or some way to get feedback so that people can respond. May develop a Title I brochure, have that. It could be included in your handbooks. Also, social media platforms are becoming more and more popular in our virtual world, so that would be a good way to get some feedback. So hopefully, these are just a few examples at the district level. It's going to be easier at the school level to get that feedback. And if there's something that you're doing that we didn't cover, that's not on the slide today, please email us with that because we would love to be able to share that with everyone.
So
Also,
Brenda has.
okay,
Oh,
go ahead, Tara.
okay. So Brenda has talked to you about some of the outreach possibilities for reaching out to your families, and also. The Every Student Succeeds Act added another requirement to Title I around the outreach to the families of English learners. And you can find those requirements in the Every Student Succeeds Act, Section 1112E. And the outreach must include holding and sending notice of opportunities for regular meetings in order to gather and respond to recommendations from parents. Our EL program recommends in their district guide that the district's Title I program should collaborate with the district's EL and or Title III program in order to maximize resources. Those programs should collaborate to design programs and interventions which address the needs of EL students. The regular sharing of information and expertise will allow both programs to provide effective services to ELs. And please note that these EL parent outreach meetings have to be in addition to the regular Title I parent and family engagement meetings.
Thanks for clarifying that, Tara. That's very, very helpful because I think with ESSA, there are so many layers of requirements, and a lot of times we don't get down far enough. So thanks for sharing that. When it comes to the district written policy, and many districts have the standard KSBA policy, which is 08.13451, and that's your Title I parent family engagement policy. If you want to go back and reference what you currently have to look at the requirements that we're going to talk about today, that might be very helpful. So one of the things that you must have in this policy is that it was developed jointly and agreed upon and distributed to parents and family members of Title I schools. So sometimes when we have that policy that has been approved, we tend to forget that we need to continue to get stakeholder feedback on that. That's very, very important. And it's also important that the students and family members receive that policy each year. It should be incorporated into your district's plan, and that's developed under Section 1112. And what that plan does is it establishes your expectations and your objectives for meeting those parent and family involvement opportunities.
And let me add too, Brenda, because I'm glad we're talking about this because that policy is so important at both the school and the district level. And that really should be driving all the activities and the outreach that's conducted. It all needs to go back because the policy drives the activities and it also drives where the funds go as well. So it's very important to always keep that policy in front and center as you're working on your parent-family engagement.
Right. And to review it each year too.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to be reviewed. So some of those policy components that must be in the district policy, of course, you have to involve parents in the development of that plan. You have to provide support necessary to assist schools in implementing those effective family engagement activities. So make sure that you're at the district level providing support to the schools. You're also required to conduct an annual evaluation of how effective this policy is in improving the academic quality of your Title I schools. You must also involve families in those school activities. And of course, I did touch on developing an advisory board. That might be very helpful in developing, revising, and reviewing your engagement policy each year. In our handbook, our Title I handbook, and that's going to be found on page 69, we have a district policy checklist. And of course, this is kind of tiny. It's hard to see in our PowerPoint. But if you go to the Title I handbook on our website, you can pull this up. And on page 69, it's going to give you everything that needs to be included. And this is very handy. I would use this checklist to cross-reference with your KSBA policy. I think that would be a good place to start.
So I'm going to briefly present some of the most common findings we see in parent and family engagement when we're monitoring. And that's another reason why we wanted to present this topic, because like the homeless spending that we presented to you last month, the parent and family engagement is an area where we see a lot of findings. These are not the only findings there could be around parent and family engagement. If you look at the district monitoring form and the school monitoring form, which are posted on our documents and resources page, you'll see all the requirements that we'll be looking for. And among all those requirements, these are some of the most common issues we see. And then I'm also going to show you a typical action we require the school or district to take if they get a finding. The actions needed may vary. They may not exactly be the same depending on the exact situation, but they're pretty typical of what we would require. And I'm showing these to you so that you can see how they relate to the district monitoring form. The district and school monitoring forms tell you the requirements that we're going to be looking at, and those turn into findings if they're not being done or not done sufficiently. And you don't want to be out of compliance, so be sure you're meeting these requirements whether you're monitored or not. So the first finding we often see is that exactly what Brenda was talking about, that it wasn't developed jointly, agreed upon, and distributed to parents of participating children at both public and private schools. It's not being reviewed annually, and it's not being revised as needed, and not being effectively implemented. So those are some of the things that we could find and that we commonly do. And then here is an action needed that we would often respond to that with. And it basically is just saying you need to meet the requirements. So we would ask for evidence of a revised policy. We would ask for evidence that parents and families, that all parents have had the opportunity to participate. A lot of times we'll see that that the school council had the opportunity to participate, or maybe some members of the PTA or a small group of parents, but not everybody was invited. So we're looking for the evidence that everybody had the opportunity to participate in that revision. Another finding we often see at the district level is that parents weren't involved in deciding ways in which the funds could be used and the types of activities that were provided. And that action needed would be that they had to solicit feedback on parent needs, and then submit evidence, for example, survey feedback or other acceptable documentation showing that all parents had the opportunity to provide feedback. And then we asked for additional evidence of that the district and schools have reviewed the feedback, etc. Another finding is that perhaps parent and family engagement funds haven't been spent. We see that quite a bit. This is just a reminder, if the district receives a Title I allocation over $500,000, at least 1% of that, including funds transferred in, are budgeted for parent family involvement activities. And at least 90% of that set aside has to be distributed to Title I served schools. So the consultants check Munis and they check GMAP to make sure that that requirement is met, that the allocations were conducted properly. And if not, they would, districts are often had to submit a plan that shows how funds will be spent and then submit evidence that to show that funds are being spent, for example, in updated Munis. And then here's another, the last common finding we oftentimes see is that it's not being, the district is not annually evaluating parent and family engagement activities. The process wasn't effective, et cetera. Perhaps no changes were made, or even if they were needed, they weren't made, et cetera. And then they would have to submit a plan for how the program will be annually evaluated and follow up evidence of the implementation of that plan. So hopefully those are helpful for you to see what, some examples of what we commonly see.
Tara, before we move on, we do have a question about the
Okay.
KSBA policy and does it meet the requirements? And so before we go on to the school policy, I thought this might be a good time to try to address that. So with the KSBA policy, it is a compliant policy. It is going to meet the minimum requirements of what ESSA is requiring. And I think that the policy itself is not an area of finding for us. It's just that when we begin to ask for additional evidence of, was it reviewed annually? Did you have some stakeholder input or feedback? Because you may not revise that policy annually if that policy is working for you. But I think what is happening is that when we're asking for the addition after the policy has been revised or before it's going to be revised, did you get stakeholder input? So I hope that answers. Tara, David, I don't know if you have anything else you would want to add to that.
I would add that to make sure that the policy is actually driving the parent and family engagement work, I think we will be possibly emphasizing that more moving forward, to look for the connection between the policy and what's actually being done, so that those the activities and the funding that's being spent is actually aligned with and purposely connected back to the policy.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to move on to
Okay.
look at the school policy. Each school that is going to receive Title I is going to, of course, develop jointly with your parents a school policy. You're going to distribute that to parents and family members of all the students that are in that Title I school, and it must be a written parent and family engagement policy. It has to be agreed upon by parents, and in that policy, you're going to describe the means of carrying out the requirements that are in subsection C through F, which is in ESSA 1116. So make sure that parents are notified of the policy in an understandable and format that, when possibly practicable, would be provided in a language that parents can understand. And many times we will see this policy in English and in Spanish. But if you have other languages in your district, you may look to provide this policy in the language that would be spoken at home. Such policy should be made available to your community and updated periodically to meet the needs of the changing needs of your parents and your school. Don't forget to convene an annual meeting. Now, this year we know that the annual meeting this fall was very difficult to have with us being virtually. But I know that districts were able to work around that. You were so creative in how you could have drive-through meetings and provide the information, the Title I information, to those parents. So all those parents of participating children should be and shall be invited to and encouraged to attend your annual meeting. During this meeting, you're going to inform parents of their participation in Title I, and you're going to explain the requirements. I know that some districts developed a PowerPoint that when they did their drive-through, they were able to hand that off to parents so that parents had some document that described the program and their rights of being parents and how they can be involved. Also, as the year goes through by, make sure that you offer flexible meetings. Those could be in the morning or the evening. You may provide with funds that Title I could be utilized for transportation. So parents to come to the meetings. You may actually provide childcare, or you could have home visits. And that's a good way to be able to meet the needs of parents so that they can participate. You need to involve them in an organized, ongoing, and timely way of planning and reviewing and improving your programs under Title I. And this includes the planning and review and improvement of your PFE policy and your joint development of your school-wide program plan, which is your CSIP. And we know that when we are monitoring, we ask who's at the table when you are revising or developing your CSIP. Do you have stakeholders? Do you have parents there? And so when you get that question, it's because it is required in ESSA. Also, make sure that parents of participating Title I students have timely information about the programs that you're offering that is being provided by Title I. A description and explanation of curriculum that is being used at the school would be included in this. The forms of academic assessment that you're going to use to measure student progress and the attainment of those challenging state academic standards. And if parents request, they need opportunities for regular meetings to formulate suggestions to participate as appropriate in the decisions that would relate to educating their children. On page 70, we have the school policy checklist. This is in our Title I handbook, which you can access on our Title I resource page. This is also a phenomenal checklist that you can use at the school level to make sure that you've included all of the ESSA requirements in your school policy. Now,
Brenda,
moving. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tara.
we did have a question. Let me just go because we just talked about this, so let me go ahead and bring this question up. The question said, did you say that the CSIP is considered the Title I school-wide program plan?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
And we do have a lot of confusion about that because a lot of districts feel like that the Title I school-wide plan needs to be separate, but it really should be embedded within your CSIP. So when we're monitoring and you provide us your CSIP, we look to see, do you have your Title I activities included or embedded within that plan? That way, everything is housed together, and we all know that your CSIP is a living document, and you're going to use that document and revise that document as time goes by. And so it's very handy to include all your Title I activities within your CSIP.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no problem. And that is, I'm glad that we had that question because that does clarify up school-wide plan versus CSIP. Always remember that you need to have some shared responsibilities, and each school that's served with Title I shall develop with parents for all those students that are served under Title I a school parent compact. Now, that compact is going to outline how the parents, the entire school staff, and the students are going to share that responsibility for improved student academic achievement and the means by which the school and the parents are going to build this partnership so that our students can achieve state's high standards. This school parent compact is required by ESSA and Title I. So what are some of those requirements that have to be included within your compact? You have to describe your school's responsibility to provide high quality curriculum instruction in a supportive and effective learning environment, which will enable children that are served by Title I to meet those challenging state academic standards, and the ways in which parents are going to be responsible for supporting their children's learning at home, like volunteering in the child's classroom and participating when appropriate in decisions relating to the education of their children and that positive use of extracurricular time. And also, you're going to address the importance of the communication between teachers and parents that is an ongoing basis. And at a minimum, you are required to have parent-teacher conferences in the elementary schools, at least annually. And during that annual meeting, that parent-teacher conference, the compact shall be discussed. And sometimes we find that this is an area where we need some improvement as it relates to that individual child's achievement. So once your compact is developed, you're going to go over that compact in a parent-teacher conference so that the parent realizes that the staff has a shared responsibility, the parent has shared responsibility, and the student has a shared responsibility. You're going to also make sure that frequent reports to parents on their child's progress. So that would be, assessment data, weekly reports, report cards at the 9 weeks. Make sure there's reasonable access to staff, and there's opportunities for parents to volunteer and participate in their child's class and observation of classroom activities. The big thing is ensuring two-way, meaningful communication between those family members and the school staff. And when it's practicable, to make sure that's in a language that the family members can understand. And I can't stress enough the two-way communication. Now on page 71, you will see a compact checklist. This will help you to tick off and make sure that all the requirements that we've just gone over is included in your school parent compact.
So
and
this
that's
is
in the
page.
Title I handbook.
Yes. Okay. So do we have anything in the chat that we need to address before we move on to the common findings for schools?
Yes, we have
Okay.
a question about the compact. Does it still need to be signed by parents? Yes, that is your evidence that parents have received that.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm not seeing anything.
All right. Okay, we'll go on and I'll go through some of these common findings at the school level. Again, the annual meeting perhaps didn't occur or wasn't sufficient to inform parents about the school's participation. So, for example, if the parents received a brochure at a back to school event, that's not going to be sufficient to count as an annual meeting. So make sure you meet those requirements that Brenda was discussing there. And if you have any questions about whether something would be sufficient, please give your consultant a call and ask them about your ideas. They'll be glad to talk to you about that. And the action needed for that finding would be that they must develop a presentation to share with parents at the beginning of the school year, which talks about the school's participation in Title I program and the parents' right to participate in parent and family engagement activities. We would ask the school to provide a narrative about how that information will be provided and the timeline, and then show us that you actually did go ahead and hold that annual meeting and submit evidence to show that. Another finding we often see at the schools is that all parents and families didn't have the opportunity to be involved in the planning, design, and implementation of parent and family engagement activities. Again, that might go back to where a few people, parents were able to give feedback because they were on the council or because they were in the PTA, but all parents did not. So we would ask the school to provide evidence that all parents had the opportunity to be involved in the planning, design, and implementation of parent and family engagement activities. And then we would ask for evidence to show that. Another finding is that the policy and or the compact were not developed in consultation with, reviewed by, and made available to parents. Few parents had the opportunity to participate in the policies or compacts development. And then the action needed for that would be to first submit a plan for how the school is going to become compliant in that area. And then after implementation of the plan, we would ask for evidence that to show that review and revision of the policy and compact have taken place, that all parents had the opportunity to participate, and then submit documentation showing that. And then the last common finding I'll share with you is that parent conferences occur. Perhaps the school is having parent conferences, but they weren't developing the parent and family engagement compact in relation to students' achievement at those conferences. So we would want to see again a plan for how that was going to be accomplished, and then submit evidence to show that the conferences did include discussion of the compact. That kind of documentation might include parent invitations, which showed the topics that would be discussed, which would include the discussion of the compact, signed statements from parents, or other supporting documents used at parent conferences. Okay, yes, building capacity.
So, in order to build that capacity at the school level, you need to make sure that you help parents understand those challenging state academic standards and your local academic assessments. That is very important for them to be able to monitor their child's progress with the teacher's input and how to improve the achievement with their children. You want to be able to provide materials and training that help parents work with their child at home to improve this achievement, such as literacy training. We know that using technology was very important as we moved virtually into parents being highly involved at home. And you also want to foster parental involvement. Educate the teachers and school staff and principals on how to reach out to, communicate with, and work with parents as equal partners. And this would help implement and coordinate parent programs. And when appropriate, coordinate and integrate parent involvement programs with other federal and state and even local programs. And sometimes we see that there's a really nice Title I Frisky partnership. Sometimes we see preschool programs partnering with their elementary school to help get those parents involved. And also ensure that the information that is regarding school and parent programs, meetings, and the activities that you're going to be doing are sent to the parents of those participating children. And make sure it's in a format, of course, when practicable, that parents will be able to understand and read.
All right. Do we have any other questions that have come in yet?
I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, nothing else yet.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I'm not going to go through all the information on these next couple of slides. I'll just share with you that these recommendations came from a policy document which was created by the Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Department of Education. It's a really good policy document. There's a link to it in the resources sheet that Brenda sent to you. It explains the importance of coordinating parent and family engagement across early childhood, which goes back to what Brenda was just talking about, the coordination of programs and how important that really is. And the only thing that, I mean, you can read through these things on yourselves. This resource at the bottom of this slide about the home visits website and video, that was something that was shared at the NASPA conference. And I will probably, maybe next month, we'll go a little more in depth into some of those resources and maybe add to that page that you were sent. But those are some things that you can look at. I did want to talk a little bit about this. This this also came from that policy statement that I was referring to. And as I look down the list of these things, these look like really good points of data that a district or a school could track as they're doing their evaluation of their parent-family engagement program. So these are just, and I'm sure there are lots of other data sources that you may be already collecting and looking at, but these maybe could give you some additional ideas for that. And here's some resources for you on the slide. The last thing I really wanted to mention before we look at our upcoming webinar dates, I wanted to thank a district who submitted some feedback in the survey. Brenda sent you that survey link today in case you would like to provide feedback. But this district said that shared one of the activities that they've done, and I'll go ahead and share that with you. They said that one of their schools had purchased a kit for students to do a STEM activity with their families while they were on remote learning. The school sent the kits home with students or had them pick it up with work drop off and pickup, and included it in their lunch pickup. And then what I think is the really cool part, the principal set up and advertised a Facebook Live session to discuss the activity, provide a short lesson about it, as well as offer other ideas for engaging families at home. He invited families to post pictures and videos of them doing the STEM activity, and it was a great success, and it sounds like it was, and I hope that the school had some really good two-way communication with their parents and their families. So thank you for taking that survey, and we really do value your feedback. We try to hear you and take your suggestions and implement those if we can. So hopefully if you have anything you would like to share with us through that anonymous survey, please feel free to do so, and we'll keep reviewing those responses. Here are the dates for our upcoming webinars. Do we have any last questions that have come in?
Not in the chat.
Okay.
And also, Tara,
yes, go ahead.
Remind them that if they are doing something that is very unique to parent-family engagement, we would love to spotlight them in a webinar or a newsletter. And I know a lot of times people feel like, well, maybe that's not that unique. Everybody else is probably doing it. Let us know, because, truly the only way that we're going to get better is to share ideas with each other and help each other learn to collaborate more. And we know that virtual has been a roadblock for PFE, but anything you've done, please let us know. We'd love to spotlight you.
Yes, that's an open invitation. We do have one question that came in, which I think is probably one that a lot of people are having. So let's just see if we can get an answer. Can we hear when GMAP will be open for the new application? Do we have that information yet? Not to my knowledge. David or Brenda, have you heard anything about when
I have not. I didn't know if maybe David had heard an estimated date, or
I have not yet. No,
I haven't either. I know we are getting that question a lot.
Yeah, I know Thelma's working on them now, but is working through other programs as well.
Right.
Yeah, we will definitely keep you informed as soon as we know anything about that. But at this time, we just have not heard anything. But thank you for the great questions. Always appreciate your participation. Brenda or David, do you all have anything else we need to discuss?
I don't have anything else.
I don't either. I would like to know if you like the live portion of this, if you could maybe shoot us an email that says, yeah, this was helpful, or maybe
put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Just let us know, because we are trying to do things different and we want to be as accessible as possible.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Really appreciate your spending some time with us this morning. I hope it was valuable information for you, and hopefully we will be able to see you next month. Thank you.